Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, April 26th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 127 days, the game against Michigan in 218 days. Okay, do you remember the backwards episode of Seinfeld? They go to India and George doesn't want to take off his boots and all that. Remember that? We're kind of doing that a little bit on this episode. Normally, we talk about all the great stuff about being a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com right at the end, and then we give you all, before that, we go through all the news and welcome in our guest and all that kind of stuff. We're kind of doing it backwards today. We're going to be talking about Buckeye Huddle off the top, and then we're going to get into the topic of the show. So the reason we're doing that is because Buckeye Huddle is holding its spring annual subscription sale. Now, it is not an annual event that we do this. This is the first time we've ever done this, but it's a sale on annual subscriptions. So because this is the first time we're doing it, bringing in Marc Givler of BuckeyeHuddle.com to talk about it. Marc, I know this is something we have not ever done before, but with the level of interest, I think, around the program this year, and, people are always kind of interested in, if they haven't subscribed to a site like this before, what do I get? Is it really worth it? So this seemed like you brought this up a little while ago, and it seemed like, yeah, that's a good idea, a good way to get people to give it a shot. And I think, once you're there, I think you're going to enjoy what you get.
Yeah, so this is like the perfect time of year for an annual subscription because we're just about to start our recruiting tour through the South, our Southern Swing, and we go around Florida, Georgia, a bunch of other states in the South, and get basically one-on-ones with all the top Ohio State recruiting targets, and we get video of their spring ball, some of them have spring scrimmages, spring practices. We get insight from their coaches, we get insight from people around the school, around the team, and so we get all sorts of inside information that we post on the premium board for our members. So that kind of kicks off. If you go in and get an annual now, that kind of kicks off your annual subscription, but then it obviously takes you through June camp season, where Ohio State will have all their June camps, and we'll get some national camps in there in June as well, and then into Big Ten Media Days and into fall camp, and then obviously through the season. And just from what we've kind of been seeing, this is maybe the most anticipated Ohio State football season in quite some time. I think the expectations are even higher this year maybe than ever, and so it gets you all the way through that, and then it gets you all the way, because we waited until after the spring game, it gets you all the way through next year's spring game. So you are set through the entirety of next year's spring practice season. So we thought this was a good time to do this. And again, we kind of broadly talk about things here on the YouTube channel and on the podcast, but all the real in-depth stuff takes place on the message board. We've got recruiting information, team inside information. And we've got guys like Ross Fulton, Devin Radcliffe posting X's and O's stuff and breaking down the team. And so, plus we've got a great community of people. I would say our message board is as drama-free as you'll find. We like to keep it that way. It's a very, obviously, during games and things like that, everyone gets their emotions up, but it's not a constant back and forth of mudslinging like some of these boards get to be. And so it's a good community of people, and so I think it's great value. It's almost 50% off. So like I said on Twitter the other day, we're never going to offer a better deal than this.
And he mentioned the drama-free board. One thing I will also mention, the football season is not the only thing happening this fall. I will tell you, we have a very firm no politics rule. So if you'd like to not have to deal with gestures, vaguely, all of that, it is a great place to be for all of that as well. And Marc, this is something that current members are able to take advantage of. Sometimes you'll see people, it's like, oh, the next, get the next month for 5 cents. And then everyone who's a member is like, why am I paying full freight? Well, people who are currently members have an opportunity to extend their membership at this price. People who are currently monthly members have an opportunity to extend at the new discounted annual rate. And if you have never been a member before, well, great news. You can take advantage of this. This is a very limited time thing. We're only doing this for a very short period. So let people know how they can sign up.
Yeah, so if you go to BuckeyeHuddle.com, there's a subscribe today button at the top menu bar, and you'll go to the annual subscription option. It says $124.99. You'll see below there will be an update. It'll say sale price of $69.99, and it'll tell you like the coupon code will be automatically applied. So you don't need to do anything, and all you need to do is click on annual, and you will be charged $69.99 for an annual subscription. If you're a monthly member already, We will prorate you back your remaining time for the month upon purchase of the annual. If you're an annual already, you can tack on 12 more months to your subscription. You just go in there, again, buy the annual subscription, and we will tack on 12 months to your existing annual subscription on our end. So whether you're new or currently monthly or currently annual, everyone can have access to the sale.
All right, so we're just going to do that once. I know you guys don't want to hear 5 minutes on this at the beginning of every show, so we're just going to do that once. Wanted to let you know that was happening because I know we have folks that watch on YouTube or just listen to the podcast, maybe don't necessarily visit the site. Now you know. People always ask, how can we support you guys? People, YouTube viewers or whatever. What can we do to support you guys? We say this is a great way to support us, the work we do. This is something that helps pay for all the trips we go on and all that fun stuff. All the pickles we make Kevin eat. That's all through members. So that's a great way to support us. So we hope to see you there at BuckeyeHuddle.com on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse. That's our insider board. You get access to that and much, much more. So there you go. Sales pitch over. Rest of the show beginning. Mark, you wrote recently about 3 big storylines for Ohio State recruiting right now as we head into what is going to be kind of the high season for recruiting, heading into the June visits and all that kind of stuff. Let's start. Game was always won and lost in the trenches, so we're going to spend 2/3 of our time today talking about the trenches. Let's talk about the offensive line. Decent start to the Ohio State class. There's a lot of interesting prospects in there in the 2025 class. What does that offensive line class look like? That feels like that's one of the big lingering questions for this 2025 class.
Yeah, they've got a lot of questions to answer on the offensive line in this class, and not all of them are necessarily bad, but they've got Carter Lowe, which is a tremendous tackle prospect. So that's a great start to get Carter in the fold, but there's not a lot of targets out there where you can sit here and say, yeah, they look like they're in great shape. David Sanders, the number 1 player in the country. Yes, the spring visit went well. Do I think Ohio State leads? No. Do I think geography is going to be tough to overcome there? Yes. Avery Gatch out of Michigan is a Michigan-Ohio State battle. Unless the NCAA comes in and kind of, shakes things up for Ohio State, I think Michigan's probably the team to beat there with Ohio State running second. And then you have Micah DeBose out of Alabama, who's got some ties to Cleveland, a kind of Cleveland area, but it's a very SEC-heavy list that he's got right now, with Ohio State kind of being an outlier. So you can't count on those 3 guys at this point. I don't think they lead for any of them. That doesn't mean you give up recruiting them, but you can't count on them. So they've got to find some other targets here this spring when the coaches are out on the road, able to evaluate, able to watch guys in person. Justin Frye's got to go out there and come up with some more names, whether those are just in case if they don't get the guys they want, or whether it's a guy that they need to move on immediately. They've got to widen the board a little bit, broaden the search a little bit, or they're going to maybe find themselves in some trouble in the fall if they miss on those 3 guys and they haven't done their diligence elsewhere. One thing that's going to kind of help them, though, well, really 2 things. I think, first of all, I think they're going to go to the transfer portal this offseason, or this next offseason after the 2024 season. They may do so this spring as well, but I think they're going to go to the transfer portal after this upcoming season to get some immediate help, which may take away a number from the 2025 recruiting class. They may, instead of taking, let's say instead of taking 4, they take 3, and then they go transfer portal for their 4th. I could see them doing something like that. The other thing is 2026 in Ohio is loaded with offensive linemen. They've got 3 they've offered already. I think they lead for all 3 of them. There's a kid in West Virginia right down the road, Deron Parks. I think they're in great shape for Deron Parks. They're certainly in the top couple schools there for Deron Parks. And then you've got Champ Smith in Florida, who I fully believe they lead for at this point, teammate of TJ Alford, their 2025 commit. So they have a great base in 2026, and they're going to want to load up in 2026, so that may impact how many they take in 25.
All right, and then that's one area where they've had solid but not necessarily spectacular classes the last few cycles anyway. The another spot where that's been the case as well has been on the defensive line, where it has just felt like for a couple of years the players they've gotten have been good, solid players. Like we're already seeing it with Edric Houston in the first spring of his career, but it was just not nearly as deep a class as we were expecting on the defensive line. And that's a little bit of a concern now moving forward as well, where they've got a couple guys committed, but where is the rest of the defensive line class going to come from?
Yeah, and this is a little bit maybe opposite of the O-line problem. They've got an abundance of options at defensive end right now. They've got two great ones committed: Zahir Mathis, London Merritt, just elite pass rushers. I expect they're going to get Justin Hill out of Cincinnati Winton Woods when he announces in July. And he's kind of a hybrid. They're recruiting him to play the jack position. If we ever see that, I think we finally will here soon. But they finally seem to be loaded up on defensive end, but now they've got all these other defensive ends. And so with spots, I don't want to say spots are like evaporating here. There's still some spots left. There's probably 2 spots left, even if we count Hill. But they're going to have to kind of figure out this spring, like, okay, Larry Johnson's going to get on the road. He's going to see all these guys in person. He's going to watch them work out. He's going to watch them practice. In some cases, he's going to watch them take part in some type of spring scrimmage. How are we prioritizing that? I mean, that's going to be a big thing. You got 2 kids just in Indiana, Marion Dye, Damian Shanklin. Do you make room for both? Is one prioritized over the other? You've got some kids in the South. You've got Isaiah Gibson in the South, USC commit. He's scheduled an official visit for June. Let's find out how serious that is. Is that just a free trip to Ohio State, or is this someone they could actually flip? Because that'd be a guy who is one of the top guys in the country. So they just got to kind of make sense of their defensive end board here the next 6 weeks. And then they've got to find some defensive tackles. So the defensive tackle board's kind of strange right now. There's not a lot of guys you can kind of hang your hat on at this point. They don't need a lot. I would say probably 2 would be their number, defensive tackle, because they don't need to take 3 or 4. I think they really like what they have on the roster. They've got a lot of young guys: Hero Canoe, Cade McDonald, Jason Moore. I'm sure I'm missing 1 or 2. They've got a lot of defensive tackles in the pipeline who have 2, 3, 4 years left of eligibility. So they're not super concerned from a numbers perspective on that, but they've got to find 2. And right now there's not a lot of like legit bona fide, like this is a great player and we're in his top 2 or 3. It seems like, oh, he's a great player, but can we get him? Or is he good enough? We can get him, but is he good enough? They got to figure that out too. So they got to kind of unearth some defensive tackle targets.
And the third spot we're going to talk about today is definitely not one where you typically worry about Ohio State recruiting, but there's some lingering questions now. They're usually fine at wide receiver. They're usually fine at corner now that Tim Walton is at Ohio State handling things. And they're usually in very good shape at quarterback. And that's a really interesting position because you generally only take 1. They've got 5 on the roster right now. How many will they have on the roster by the time whoever's in the class of 2025 shows up? Well, isn't that an interesting question? And we have no idea whether it's going to be 2 or 4 or what. So what are they going to do? You've got your 2025 class, your 2025 quarterback in Tavian St. Clair. When you're looking out at 2026, what is that quarterback board looking like right now?
Yeah, and that's the question for this spring, and that'll certainly bleed into June when quarterbacks can come up in camp with Chip Kelly and Ryan Day at the Ohio State one-day camps. But that's a question I threw out there because they've had so much turnover with their offensive coaching staff, going from Corey Dennis to Bill O'Brien and Chip Kelly. And it threw things. I don't say chaos is too alarmist because we're talking about 2026 and it's a year and a half off, but it threw things. We'll use the word uncertainty. It threw things into a bit of uncertainty when, Corey Dennis had the guys he had built relationships with. Then Bill O'Brien was going to come in and do kind of what he wanted to do. And now you've got Chip Kelly, who may have a totally different idea than what those 2 guys had. And we've seen Jared Curtis, the number 1 quarterback in the country, go off the board to Georgia. So he's kind of out of the mix now. And they've offered a slew of guys. They've offered like 5 or 6 guys in the last month. So you've got these new offers. So you're kind of fishing around right now. And so now Chip Kelly can go out and watch guys throw in person here the next 6 weeks. And then in June, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly will both be able to do that when quarterbacks come to campus. So that's a big thing the next 6 weeks is, okay, we've offered 7 or 8 guys, but like who's our guy? You always see someone kind of emerge. Like last year at this time is when Tavian St. Clair started to emerge as their guy in 25. That's going to start to happen here in 26. And it's like, who's it going to be? Could it be Will Griffin from Florida, who's kind of the one holdover from the Corey Dennis era to now? Dia Bell out of American Heritage, a program that Ohio State's very familiar with, got his offer. That's a big offer for him. He's admitted that. Could he be the guy who kind of emerges? They're already trying to get his teammate Malachi Toney in 2026 as receiver, so that may be a natural fit. So just kind of see what direction this goes. And oh, by the way, to kind of plug our Southern Swing coming up, Will Griffin and Dia Bell will be on our Southern Swing list, so you'll hear from them directly here in the coming weeks, and many other prospects as well. Hopefully, a couple other quarterback targets as well on our trip.
Yeah, I have been talking to Kevin a little bit about that, and it sounds like it could be a quite extensive Southern Swing this year. Going to spend a lot of time in the car, going to see a lot of high school football players. Going to get a lot of great content, and you're going to get it at BuckeyeHuddle.com. I did the sales pitch off the top. We're going to wrap it up real quickly. I feel like we should say the countdown backwards if we're really doing the Seinfeld thing, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to wrap it up, tell you that we hope you see you at BuckeyeHuddle.com very soon, and also at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.